service. And I'll warn you that I'm going to sing one of the announcements, so brace yourself. After this service, around 11:30, we're going to meet in the library to help people learn how to get donations from businesses for our auction. So this should be fun. There's also a climate action group meeting tomorrow night at 7. A covenant group leader training, that's next Saturday, February 25th, from 9 to noon in the library. And auction donations. If you haven't done your auction, figured out your auction donation, the sheets are in the back on a portable table there. They're green because our auction theme this year is Down to Earth, and it happens on Earth Day, the 22nd of April. And so I wanted to point that out and remind you of that. And then I got an early announcement, or I should say a new announcement this morning. The ministerial search team has passed what's called the first stage of search. And that is they've sent documents out online, and hopefully we will find someone who likes us and is impressed with us and is willing to come in the fall. We're looking for I think a half-time minister at this point, because that's about all we can afford right now, but it looks good. And finally, you ready for this? Okay. I'll get my script out here. I was asked to do commercials for the auction, so this is my first commercial. I tried to record these, and I recorded it on my phone and then discovered that I was creating iMovie, which is not compatible with our system, and so we couldn't play that. And then I tried doing it on Zoom because we have a Zoom account, and I realized that it doesn't work, and the reason it doesn't work is because we're not connected with the system. So, there we are. So, are you ready? You can look at events that are big and small, and some don't look like fun at all. But take one look and you're bound to fall for the UU auction this year. The auction, you can't beat the auction. You're always right at the auction, our biggest event of the year. We're down to earth at the auction, April 22nd. Be there or be square. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Rich just said, to my wife, did you listen to that all week? And she said yes. Actually, we have separate rooms together, so.
Good morning. Before we start our gathering song, I could ask you to please put your phones in worship mode. And I'd also like to thank Rich Richens for working so hard to help out with the piano. He's playing piano today. The gathering song is number 1000, Morning Has Come. Oh, please rise in body and spirit, and join me in singing that.
A new day dawns, once more the gift is given. Wonder hearts to welcome it among us. The light of love here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide really sorry. I forgot that there were only 2 verses.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces. We welcome those of you who are in our sanctuary this morning and also those of you who are online. I might mention that everything seems to be working with the Zoom today. I got a panic phone call last night saying, oops, we won't be able to put pictures on Zoom. And I thought, oh, that's one of the purposes, isn't it? And evidently that's been resolved, and we simply did it by switching some modules up on the AV stand. I'm very glad to hear that. I'm Charlie Scholes, your service assistant. Our service leader today is Sandy Nielsen, and our religious education director, who is providing the video time for all ages, is Kelly Ingram. And the music this morning is provided by Rich Richens on piano. Kathy Cox is our music leader, and then the 2 Marks are going to sing, and this gentleman is going to play. And I've forgotten your name already. Rube. Anyway, he's there. You'll hear him. Okay, the people who are assisting us today in tech are Elwin Nunn on camera, Mike Asco on Zoom, and Claire Neal Wallace on audio. The greeters are at the top of your order of service if you saw them. And the hospitality today will be provided by the multicultural group. As we like to say, it takes a village to bring you this service. We're delighted to see you all today. Unitarian Universalism has no creed or dogma. We are a covenant-based church. In fact, we're going to recite that covenant in a few minutes. We agree to live in relationship with each other using the covenant of right relations and our Unitarian Universalist principles. We embrace diversity in all its forms, and everyone is welcome. You can learn more about our church at the website uuchurchlc.org. If you're visiting today, we'd like to meet you. If you're in the sanctuary, I'd like you to rise in body or spirit, and I'll bring the mic to you, and you can introduce yourself. If you're online, please open your mic and your camera, and then we'll get to you, okay? You're not really a visitor.
You don't have to do. My name is Karuna Richard Warren, and I've done the program, the Peace Village here, for about almost 3 or 4 years. And Ann Knowles, and also Sandy Barbecue. And of course, we have Jean Gilbert, who invited me in our group, the New World Drummers, to perform in Old Messiah. And then we have Judy Lick back there, and she was the therapist for one of our children in treatment foster care. And also we have Jan Thompson somewhere over there. And, and so Jan brought African students to our class, to my class at Community Church. And there's my wife back there too, Marie Warren. So, so thank you very much.
Covering all the bases.
Yeah, I'm Mark Courtney. Mark, the other Mark, invited me to join in song, and I had the pleasure of playing with Mark and Michael Pritchard in a trio for about 5-6 years earlier on, and so we have shared musical interests that brought me here.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Trudy Schultz, and we are here. My sister and her brother-in-law invited us to come with them today.
Okay, good.
Hi, I'm Bill Schultz. I'm Trudy's husband, and we were invited by our brother-in-law to come out here and be here, so thank you.
I think that's reasonable. Thanks a lot. Nice to see you. Anyone else? All right. Do we have anyone on Zoom? Mike? Yes? Okay.
happen.
Okay. Can we try that again?
Well, good guy.
Oh, am I on? Okay, so I'm just visiting from home today, and I'll see some of you guys later at Hale's workshop. But I had my hip operation, and I'm just not walking to church today.
Okay. I assume she's much more hip too, so. Well, if you're a shy visitor and about our church, please feel free to fill out a visitor's card. The greeters will help you with that. And join us after the service for coffee and conversation in the breezeway just down the walk. All right? Our opening words this morning are by Emma Goldman. Someday, men and women will rise. They will reach the mountain peak. They will meet big and strong and free, ready to receive, to partake, and to bask in the golden rays of love. What fancy, what imagination, what poetic genius can see or foresee the potential of such a force in the life of men and women? Kathy, would you help me with the chalice lighting this morning? We light our chalice this morning with these words from Marjorie Montgomery. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. Now, would you please rise in body or spirit and join me in saying the church's affirmation of covenant, and then join Kathy Cox in singing the doxology in English and Spanish. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung. Through every land, by every tongue. De todos bajo el gran sol surja esperanza, fe, amor, verdad, belleza en la canción de cada tierra, cada voz. Please rise and join us in singing number 1014, which has been renamed Answering the Call of Love. And the lyrics will be correct on the screen. And we're doing all three verses. The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide. And so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
Hello, readers. Today's story is The Big Umbrella, written by Amy June Bates, co-written with Juniper. Hello, readers. Today's story is The Big Umbrella, written by Amy June Bates, co-written with Juniper Bates. By the front door, there is an umbrella. It is big. It is a big, friendly umbrella. It likes to help. It likes to spread its arms wide. It loves to give shelter. It loves to gather people in. It doesn't matter if you are tall or hairy or plaid. It doesn't matter how many legs you have. Some people worry that there won't be enough room under the big umbrella. But the amazing thing is, there is. There is always room. The end. Thank you for reading with Tu y Yo Reading Adventures. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. Till next time, goodbye.
One of the ways we express our care for one another is through the sharing of joys and sorrows. Another way we do it is by lighting candles and silently saying to ourselves, the joy, the sorrow, or the concern that we feel. As the music plays, please come up and light a candle to express your joy, concern, or sorrow. I'm going to light this last candle for all those thoughts, joys, and concerns that have not been expressed.
Good morning. I came today to tell you a story. It's not a fictional story. This is a real story about Jemima's legacy. I was born a long time ago in Washington, D.C., in the middle of the Great Depression, and my mother and father were not natives of D.C. My mother was the eldest of 6 children. She'd grown up in a coal mining town in West Virginia. And my dad, he was also the oldest of 6 children. And his German-speaking parents were starting to try to build up a farm in Nebraska, but they were having a tough time. So I don't know where or when my parents met, but by the time I came along, we three were living in a small apartment next door to the big Rock Creek Park where the National Zoo is, I think still today. And they were working, they had come to find jobs, and they found them. At first, there were kind of small jobs, but then both of them got jobs with the federal government. And they were happy about that because they could start saving money. And they did. They worked hard, they saved money, and they ended up buying us a new house, not in D.C. They wanted to be out away from D.C. So we were going to be moving to a new house in Maryland. Now, that presented a problem because now we were going to be too far from from the lady that Mother had been using for a babysitter. And my younger sister had come along too. So now there were two of us to worry about. So she got busy and called her sisters, the three younger ones, up in West Virginia. And sure enough, they were happy to come down and live with us for a little while and take care of the two of us. But I think for all three girls who'd grown up in this small rural town, to come next door to Washington, D.C., and not get in there any more than they did, that wasn't fun. So they didn't stay with this job very long. So Mother had to find someone. And one night she came in to tell us goodnight, and she said, Sandra Jean, when she used my middle name like that, I knew there was something serious going on. Sandra Jean, I want you to be on your best behavior tomorrow because our new sitter is coming. And her name is Jemima. And she walked out of the bedroom. Jemima, I'd never heard that name before, but I liked the sound of it. It kind of sounded almost like music to me. And it was different. And I wondered, would she like us? Would we like her? Well, I found out the next morning some things I was surprised at. The next morning, I wanted to be the first one to see Jemima. So I bolted down breakfast, ran into the living room, jumped into the big chair by the front window, and watched for her. And it didn't take very long. She came up the street and started coming up our sidewalk, and I was dumbfounded. I was totally unprepared for the surprises. Now, my mother was very tall and skinny. Jemima, she was short and round. And my mama's skin was so white, people used to tease her and say, Irene, do you ever go out in the sun? You look so pale. Are you sick today? Well, Jemima, she was brown all over. So I was trying to kind of reconcile these big contrasts between these two women. When there was a knock on the door, I ran to answer it. Jemima was standing there with this big smile on her face. You must be Sandra Jean. Your mama has told me so much about you girls. She walked in our house and walked into my life. Now, appearances weren't the only difference between my mother and Jemima. There were other things too, and one of them was their approach to children. My mother worked hard in D.C. all day, but she got to ride in with Daddy. He had bought a yellow cab, and that's what they went to work in the morning. But after work was done, he stayed in D.C. to pick up fares to make extra money for the family. So Mother had this long bus ride home, and then when she got to the end of the bus line, there was 1.25 miles that she had to walk to get to the house. And she'd had foot problems ever since she was a child. So walking that 1.25 miles after a long day at work was really more than she could take some days. And she'd come in the house, kick off her shoes, and say, that's it, I'm not wearing those darn things until tomorrow. Then she'd go in the kitchen, and Jemima would have started our dinner. Mama would finish cooking it. Then she'd get it on the table, call us, and we'd go eat, watch our manners. And after that, she'd go to the kitchen and clean it up. And then she'd start our bath water into our pajamas, into bed. We had this tight schedule every night of the work week. And I know why she did it. I mean, she was worn out, she'd been gone all day, and no husband at home at night to help with us. So there was a lot of stress, I think, in her life. Now, Jemima had a different way of doing things, and it was probably to her advantage. After lunch, she would put Diana down for a nap, and Jemima and I would go in the living room, sit in that big chair together. She'd read me books. She'd tell me stories. She'd sing me songs, and we'd just talk. It was a big part of my day, the part I really looked forward to. So, you know, looking at these two women, and they both had such impacts on my life, if somebody had asked me maybe a month after Jemima arrived, Sandra Jean, who do you love more, your mother or Jemima? I probably would have had a very hard time as answering a question like that. One day, early in the summer, Mama came into the bedroom to say goodnight, and she said, girls, tomorrow's going to be such a big day. The government is letting your daddy and me and everybody that works there take the afternoon off because it's going to be this gigantic parade, and the president is even going to be there. So get ready. We're going to go tomorrow. Oh, and Jemima's going to bring you two on the bus, and we'll all go together. So I was so excited. We were little, and my family worked in D.C., so no, there weren't any afternoon or Sunday afternoon drives into D.C. to see things. They'd had enough of that city by the weekend. So it was like going to Paris for us. So the next morning, after they left for work, Jemima said, girls, I see your mama put some new sundresses on the beds. Go put those on now, and then we're going to go. Well, we put them on, and when we came out in the living room where Jemima was waiting, she just beamed. She said, my goodness, I can't believe it. You're such lovely ladies. All right, now let's get going. We're going to have a big day. We went out of the house and started walking, and it was not one of the paved streets by the new houses. It was an old country road that had been part of the farming community at one time. Well, if you've ever been in D.C. in the summer, you know it can get hot, really boiling hot. And the unfortunate part is it also gets this high humidity most of the time with the heat. So we were walking along, and I could feel these drops of water sliding down my body and splashing onto the road. I got so thirsty, but this was long before people started walking around with bottled water, so there was nothing to drink. But we kept going, and finally, we went up the last hill, and at the top there was a sign, end of the line, no shade, nothing, of course, to drink, and the bus was late. So we waited out in that boiling sun, and I thought, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. But finally, the bus finally arrived, and I was the first one on. My sister followed me, and I'd seen this long seat at the back of the bus, and that's what I headed for, because I wanted a place where there'd be plenty of room for the three of us. And when Jemima finished paying for it, for our rides, she came back, but she didn't sit down with us. And she leaned over to me and she said, Sandra, I need you to do me a favor. I want you to take your sister and go up to that empty seat by the driver, and I want you to sit up with your sister there. Well, my goodness, that wasn't anything hard to do. So I told Jemima, yeah, I can do that, Jemima. And I took Diana's hand and took her up to that empty seat. And I turned to say something to Jemima, but she wasn't there. And I looked further back, and there she was in the back of the bus, still sitting on that seat that we just left. I didn't know what was going on. So I walked back and I said, Jemima, why are you sitting back here all by yourself? We want to sit with you. We came with you. Jemima, please, please come up and sit with us. We don't want to be without you. And she said, shh, shh, shh. Calm down, Sandra. I'm afraid you're going to get me in a lot of trouble if you don't do what I ask. Now, I need you to go up to your sister's place on that seat and sit by her. And I'm going to be sitting back here right where I am now. And your mama's going to you're going to see your mama soon, and then we'll all go to that parade together. Well, I still didn't know what exactly was happening, but I went back like I was supposed to and sat with my sister. But every now and then I'd turn around and take a look, and I thought maybe she'd change her mind and come sit with us, but that didn't happen. But after we'd been on the bus for a while in D.C., she came and stood by our seat and said, "Girls, the next stop is ours. Your mama's going to be waiting there for you. So you get off by the front doors, I'll get off by the back, then we'll all be together." So that's what happened. When the bus doors flew open, I flew out of the bus, and there was my mother. Mama, I am so thirsty, I'm just going to run over here and get a drink of this fountain, and please don't leave without me. So I went over there, and I was about ready to get a drink of water when I felt this hand grab the back of my dress and pull me hard away from the fountain. "Sandra Jean, I know you can read. Read me that sign over that fountain." I hadn't seen a sign. I just saw the fountain. "Well, it says colored only, Mama." "Yes, that's right. Now, you see that fountain over there?" No, I hadn't seen it until now. "Does it have a sign?" "Yes, Mama, it does. It does." "Read it to me." "It says whites only." "Yes, that's right. Now, Sandra, you tell me, are you a white girl or are you a colored girl?" "Oh, well, I'm white, Mama. Now, do you know which fountain you're supposed to be drinking from?" Yes, I do, Mama. I'm going to go get my drink. And let's not have any more trouble today, girl. And I went, and I think I took the longest drink ever consumed in the Western Hemisphere. So that just about when I finished, my dad arrived, and he was in such good spirits that it made all the problems of the morning just kind of disappear. And we went to that parade, and I don't remember a thing about it. I assumed there were marching bands. I assumed there were battalions of soldiers or sailors or something. And I have no idea if the president actually was in that parade, because all I remember is after the parade was over, Daddy looked at us and he said, "Girls, guess what? I'm not going to drive cab tonight. I'm going to take us home right now." And that's what he did. That night when Mama came in to say goodnight, I said, "Mama, I have a question I want to ask you." "All right, what is it?" "Well, it's about those two fountains this morning. Why do we have to have two fountains? Why couldn't we just have one and everybody could drink at the same fountain and nobody would get mixed up about what fountain they were supposed to go to?" "Oh, well, now I understand why you're asking that question. I don't know the answer. It's always been like this since I was your age, and I don't think it's ever going to change. So you get to sleep now, you girls. You've had a big day." Well, I went to sleep that night with questions rolling around in my head, but no answers. I hadn't even told her about the bus, and that really hurt me. I wasn't sure why Jemima just left us on our own. Later in the summer, Mama came to our bedroom again to say goodnight, and she said, "Sandra, tomorrow is your big day. You're going to get to go with Jemima to her house, and you're going to spend the whole day there playing. I'm going to stay home from work. I'm going to take care of your little sister. So just have a great day." Well, that was another night when it was hard to get to sleep. I had never seen Jemima's house. I knew she had a boy and a girl, but I'd never met them, and this was all going to happen the next day. So that morning when I got up, I dressed really fast, ran into the living room, and watched for her. And she didn't even have a chance to get up to our sidewalk because I was out of our house like a shot. I ran over and gave her a big hug and said, Jemima, I'm so excited about going to your house today. And she said, well, we're excited too, Sandra. So we better get going. It's a bit of a ways from here. Well, that was kind of an understatement as it turned out. First, we had to go through this housing development, houses that I'd never seen. The trees were all cut down. It was so hot, it seemed to take forever. But finally, we came to the last house, and we were standing on a road that I'd never been on before, never seen. But the great thing about that road, lines of green, leafy trees on both sides. Finally, some shade. And she said, Sandra, you keep your eyes peeled because we're going to come to a dirt path on the left where you are, and we're going down that path, and it'll take us right to my house. So yes, I kept my eyes peeled like Jemima said, but it was a long walk before we finally got to that path. And I was thinking, Jemima has to do this every morning and every afternoon. She must be really tired like Mama. But then we came to the path, and Jemima led the way, and it was a bit of a jaunt again. But when we came to the end of the trees, the path kept going, and there were 3 or 4 little houses on both sides. And her house was the first. Her children came barreling out of the house. Sandra, guess what? We went in the woods yesterday, and we built us a fort. You want to kind of see it? Well, forts and woods, that was my thing too. So I followed them out to the woods, and we stayed there all morning playing. And when we heard Jemima calling us for lunch, we ran back and got our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but took them back to the woods for a picnic. And during the afternoon, I got a little bit, well, not sure what was happening. So we 3 walked back to the house, and I said, do you know when my daddy's coming, Jemima? Yes. He's going to be here in a little while, so it's a good thing you kids came back. You don't have time to go back to the woods. You can play around the house. We went outside, and I wasn't ready to play because I had a question I wanted to ask her son and daughter. How come I never see you at my school? You do go to school, right? Well, of course we go to school. What do you think? You think we're dumb or something? No, we've got a school right near here, and we don't have to ride any old school bus. Oh. Well, his sister kind of diplomatically entered the conversation. Sandra, would you like to see our school? Well, yes, I would. Well, I hadn't seen any school building or any playground, so I wondered, is it further ahead? The path came to an end and the woods started again. So there wasn't any way to go into that area and see a school. And we were at the end of the path, and over here nearby was one of those little houses. They walked right up to it and opened the door, and then we went in. Their school had 1 room, 2 tables, a few chairs, and a bookcase. The bottom 2 shelves were empty, and on the top, I counted 8 books. How do you have school with only 8 books? Well, we share. That's what we do. We know how to share, and we share our books, and it just works out fine. Oh, well, it's good that you share. It really is good. I didn't know what to say. It was probably a question I shouldn't, or something I shouldn't have said. But just then, Jemima was calling us, saved the day for me. We ran back to her, and she said, Sandra, your daddy's out there waiting right now, I think, in that yellow cab, and you're going to be the leader. Just walk us back to the road. And when I got there, yes, Daddy was waiting. That night, Mama came in at bedtime, and I said, Mama, please sit down. I have some questions. Oh, you and your questions. All right. What is it this time? Well, Mama, does Jemima's husband have a job? Yes, he does work. And Jemima, do you pay her to come here and take care of me and Diana? Ha! You think I would not pay her? Who would come take care of the two of you if they didn't get paid? Nobody, of course. I pay her. Well, then, Mama, I don't really understand. You and Daddy both work, and you bought us this new house. And Jemima and her husband, they both work. But Mama, they live in a tiny, tiny house, and the paint's all off the outside, and there's a broken window. And Mama, I just want a better place for Jemima and her family. Why is it like this? And she said, I don't know, but this is the way it has always been. And things are not going to change. People do not like to change. And she walked out of the bedroom. I didn't know it at the time, but that was almost the end of the time that Jemima and I would have together. My mother and father had started arguing at night after he got home from driving cab. And our bedroom was so far away, I couldn't make out the words. I didn't know what was wrong. I just knew something was wrong. And then almost as suddenly as it started, it stopped. And I had heard a song from Jemima about parents fighting like snakes. And I was so glad that my parents had stopped fighting. But what came next was hard. They sold all our furniture, even my piano. And Mama started packing things into the yellow cab, because that was going to be the way we got to Nebraska. It was going to be a car that we drove. It also was going to be our moving van. So she packed it pretty tight. And the day we started off on our trip, Jemima came to say goodbye. I was sobbing, and Jemima was crying. And I thought, will I ever see her again? Well, it took us several days driving to get to Nebraska. And when we got to Pender, this small farming village where most of Daddy's family lived, I learned I had aunts and uncles and cousins that I had never known existed. And they were kind people. They loved to laugh, and they were good to us. And the first week when summer came, my mom and Dad left us with Aunt Neva and took off for the Black Hills of South Dakota. Have any of you ever been there? Some of you have. Well, when Daddy and Mama got back home, Daddy threw the door open and said, "Pack up, girls, we're going to heaven on earth." And yes, we moved to the Black Hills of South Dakota. And we stayed probably close to 6 years. And then Daddy got itchy feet again. That's what Mama called it. He wanted to move us further west. And altogether, there were 2 more moves, and they finally ended up right on the shore of the Pacific Ocean, which stopped him dead. I used to laugh and say, "Daddy, are you sure you're not going to wade to China?" Well, all right, then in South Dakota, I went to high school, junior high, and by the time I graduated from that, my parents and the rest of my family was in Vancouver, Washington, which is across the river from Portland, Oregon. My daddy had found a good job. He suddenly became a plumber. I don't know how he did that, but he worked with a lot of big construction over the river in Portland. I started college there, but by my sophomore year, I transferred up to Seattle to the University of Washington. And very early in my sophomore year there, one of my best friends introduced me to a young man that she had praised to the skies for, well, it seemed like years. And he was everything she said he was. Plus, he played classical piano. I was really cooked. So we dated through the next 3 years. And he graduated a year before I did. We got married that summer that he graduated in my family's Presbyterian church in Vancouver. Then he was sent to Germany. It was going to be a 2-year stint, and he'd be done then with the ROTC requirements. So I stayed in Seattle and did my senior year in my student teaching, but I joined him for that second year of his in Germany. And I was so glad. It was fascinating to go to a foreign country and do a little traveling to France and Paris as well. When we came home, he had a job waiting in Seattle, And that's where we moved, not into the city. We moved into one of those bedroom communities to the south. By then, we had one girl, and in a little while, another girl too. And I had discovered the Unitarian Church. It felt like home the first time I visited. And I told my husband about it. Now, his family had never attended church, and I didn't expect this to go anywhere. But he agreed to go one Sunday with me. And when he came out, he said, "I see what you mean about it feeling like home." And that was it. We both joined the church, and it was a big part of our lives. One day, there was a call from my minister, "Sandra, your community is starting an open housing committee, and I'd like you to be our representative on that committee." Well, I was just 22 at the time, and I didn't think I really knew enough to be on a committee like that. But suddenly, it flashed in front of me the picture of Jemima's house, the kids' school, and I knew I had to try. So we worked at it. It took us several months to find a black family in Seattle that was willing to leave what they called the central area and move out to an all-white community. But it turned out to be a wonderful family. They had 2 boys in school, and it was just a great learning experience for me. And the wonderful thing about it was, after they moved out here, where we were, the door was open, and other families followed. So we had some work to do for several months going on to that. All through my adult life, I seemed to gravitate towards volunteering or working with communities and people who needed help. And as time went on, I realized that came from Jemima, from knowing how they were living and being worried about how they were living, and a mother who said, "This isn't going to change." And I decided when groups got to form that I would be part of it. So I worked with different populations at times, but the last one was probably the hardest. I was living near my parents out at the coast, and the ice had started picking up. Well, in the first year, they got over 30 fathers and husbands and one mother, and they ended up deporting them. Well, how does a family survive when the wage earner is gone? So some of us formed a committee. We donated money, we raised money, we wrote grants, and we were able to keep those families going all right when the husbands were gone. But it was hard work, and that family and that committee is still operating at the beach because they're still needed. So over the years, I've looked back at how this all got started, and I'm convinced it started with Jemima, not my mother, who didn't see any hope in the world at all, but Jemima. That was her legacy to me. Thank you.
This is the song with Mama and Papa Fighting Like Snakes. And you all can join in on the chorus. And we're happy to have Karuna Warren playing djembe over here. And Mark Sukantarak and Mark Courtney on guitar. And Roy Vanderat helping with the lyrics. Okay.
Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in.
Mama and Papa are fighting like snakes.
Open the window, let the dove fly in.
Baby
Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in.
Neighbors lock their doors, build fences so high.
Open the window, let the dove fly in.
Don't see what's to discover on the other side.
Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in.
Borders round countries and borders round the sky.
Open the window, let the dove fly in.
The only border close you is a border round your mind.
Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in.
Some people have money, some people have none.
Open the window, let the dove fly in.
What's the use of money if your heart's gone numb?
Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in.
This big old world is in a great big mess.
Open the window, let the dove fly in.
Open the window, find peace and rest.
Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in.
It's time for sharing our gifts. The operation and outreach of our church needs your input and your contributions. This is the perfect time to think about what you can give back. In a moment, the greeters will pass among you with the offering baskets. Please give generously, but before they do, I should remind you that we support organizations identified by the Social Justice Committee with our Change for Change program. This quarter's recipient for Change donations is the Animal Action Group. You can give to them by putting your change in the basket or by writing Change for Change on the note line of your check. Please give generously.
Lass sie fliehen, meine Liebe, durch die Nacht zu mit dir. In den stillen Hain hernieder, Liebchen, komm zu mir. Fluss den schlanke Wipfel rauschen in des Mondes Licht, in des Mondes Licht. Des Verräter feindlich lauschen vor der Holde nicht. düster Nacht, die Gallen schlagen, ach, sie fliehen dich. Mit den Tonen zu sin Lagen fliehen sie vor mich. Sie verstehen bloß des ihnen keinen Liebesschmerz, kein Liebesschmerz. Ruhren mit der Silbertonen jedes weiche Herz, jedes weiche Herz. Laut schaut dir die Brust bewegen, Liebchen, höre mich. Bebend hört sie dir entgegen. Komm, komm, beglücke mich. Komm, beglücke mich. Beglücke mich.
Our closing hymn is The Fire of Commitment, words and music by Jason Shelton. Would you please rise and join us in that? This is a rouser.
Just 2 verses this time. Verses 1 and 3. From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the story of useful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that
You may be seated.
We're looking for Margaret Mead.
Is she here?
And the closing words, thankfully, are very brief. Maybe you can use the index faster than we are, Margaret Mead. Maybe someone has heard this. I would imagine a lot of you have.
I've got it.
You've got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that, folks. There we go.
Margaret Mead wrote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has."
Please join us as we extinguish the light. We extinguish this flame, but not this light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace.